right, we'll go ahead and jump in. Thanks for coming out, everyone. My name is Ben Shelton. I'm the Statewide Orthoimagery Program Manager. I work for North Carolina Center for Geographic Information and Analysis. It's within NCDIT. Co-presenting with me today is John Derry. He also works with CGI. He's our Asheville office. But between the two of us, we kind of manage and handle the imagery projects every year. So we're looking forward to telling you a little bit more about where we're at currently in the imagery and what's coming up in the future. Tim Johnson stole our thunder a little bit about the current project being collected, but we'll push through and we'll look a little bit to the future and what we anticipate are our biggest challenges and our next hurdles for continuing to improve the value from the program. So here's our current orthoimagery cycle. It started back in 2020 along the coast. We do collect about a quarter of the state every year. So we've gone through 3 projects. We delivered the 2022 project in yellow there back in early December of 2022 to those counties. And now we're in the middle of our 2023 project. And that's the typical challenges for that project area is half of it are mountainous. So that requires tighter flight lines. It requires a higher sun angle, considerations for snow and things like that. And apparently people like to burn things out in the mountains, so we have to wait for smoke to clear sometimes. So all of those things in the Charlotte area can create kind of a difficult project area, even though it's only 21 counties in that area. So as Tim mentioned, you can kind of see in this map that this was the current status going into the weekend. Over the weekend, we were able to complete collection of all the imagery, the earliest we've really ever done that in this project area. The vendors do have to do some reflight assessments, so if there are some of those smoke areas or a stray cloud here and there or anything that needs to be reflown, they might have to go and collect a few exposures just to complete things out, but the stress levels have kind of decreased now because if you haven't noticed, the trees are really kind of starting to bloom out across the state, and that's really when my stress levels start to go up, my anxiety, because we want to get this all collected before the leaves come out. For 911 purposes, we need to be able to see those houses, see those structures. Some areas, the pine trees, you can't do anything except the chainsaw, but at least, we can see most of the structures. So now, looking forward to the future, just a few weeks ago, we went before the North Carolina 911 board. We proposed the next 4-year cycle, and that was approved. So we are approved for beginning along the coast in 2024 and moving throughout the state. With the challenge along the coast really is the military coordination. We work closely with all of our partners there, Camp Lejeune, Cherry Point, Marine Ocean Terminal at Sunny Point. You have the defense installation that we won't mention up in Perquimans that nobody knows about. And, the Dare bombing range with the Air Force and whatnot. So there's a lot of coordination, and not to mention all the Coast Guard installation. So that's a lot of military cooperation that we have to kind of line up and get ready for next year. So we'll be beginning our project in 2024, and then we still have to go before the board and get funding allocated for every year after that, but we're very encouraged by all the feedback by the 911 board. They really see the potential and the value of this product going forward. And all not just the uses for 911, but the uses for all of the other issues around the state, tax assessments, forestry. I mean, we just continue to learn more and more about all the different uses of imagery. I was on an adult soccer team once, and the guy I worked with or was playing with, he said, well, I work on farm insurance stuff, and we use this imagery product from NC1 Map. You do maps, right? And I said, oh, well, yeah, I lead that program, so thank you. So, I mean, every day I run into people that benefit from this program, so it's very satisfying. And each project is 911 board, every time we present to them lately, they say this is kind of a key program to highlight interagency cooperation throughout the state. So each project is kind of a collaborative effort between multiple state agencies. We have the local government and the public, the PSAPs in each project area. They kind of help define the requirements, help us QC the products, deliver the products to all the end users. But we also have 3 state agencies that partner with us in each project. So we have the NCDOT photogrammetry unit. They're very key to our program's success. They, analyze all of the compliance documentation coming from the contractors and the vendors, making sure they're meeting all the specifications. They do all of our flight planning analysis, make sure everything's kind of lined up to collect things in the most efficient manner. and get these projects completed successfully. So we couldn't really do it without that photogrammetry, and they are the experts in this kind of work. We have Gary Thompson's group in the geodetic survey. They handle all of our horizontal QC. They manage all of the statewide cores network to make sure that our vendors have the best network of GPS stations and things throughout the state, that they can tie this really closely to the ground and horizontally get to that specification. So our specs now are a foot RMSE in the X and Y, and most of the projects finish well within half a foot. So we're really happy with the horizontal accuracy that comes out of our products. And then we have Rich Elkins and Nathan Bland from the Secretary of State's office, the Department of Land Records Management. They really manage the technical standards for orthoimagery in the state. They handle a lot of our input and advisory roles, where they're kind of making sure that we're meeting all of those specs every project. So throughout that, it's a big collaborative effort. There's a lot of work done between all of these state agencies. So now the 2024 project's approved, we're working on getting our MOU together with the 911 board. And then in July, we'll start with our normal qualifications-based selection process. Everything is selected without regard to cost. So we get the most qualified vendors in place, and then we negotiate costs after they've been selected. And then we'll probably start along the coast, hopefully in mid to late January, collecting the imagery for that project area there. Because along the coast, you know, when we were there in 2020, it was a squeaker getting it collected before those leaves come out. So we try to start as soon as possible, get as many vendors in those areas that we feel are necessary to get as many acquisition systems really up in the air. In 2020, we had 10 aircraft in the air at one day. So we try to really cover a lot of ground. They may have about 7 or 8 clear days to really do the imagery collection. But our goal is to hopefully deliver that in the same time frame as our past projects, November, December of 2024. And so John Derry's going to take over and talk about a little bit of the improvements on the program.
Improvements in, changes have been made in the last few years. So I don't know if anyone attended David Giordano's and Britt Spivey's talking about how we've moved our entire, basically we're becoming almost an entirely in the cloud shop. So, and that's really, that's where our file storage is, our data storage is, our workstations, our, everything we use day to day is in an AWS cloud. And that's really no different for the imagery project. Almost all of it that on our end, we do in the cloud. And it starts with in the upper left-hand corner there is the vendors will deliver the TIFFs to us. They'll FTP up to an S3 bucket in Amazon. That's taken a lot of load off them. They could just upload it instead of schlepping drives. It's not a fun process trying to get drives together and load stuff up and does the mail, or how are we sending? Is it going to get to us? So took a lot of burden off us and them. That data goes to that S3 bucket, and then we have a GeoExpress and ArcGIS on a EC2 instance that's in Amazon. And that's where we do a lot of the visual checks, the spatial reference, the file names, and then we'll do the SID tiles are on the TIFFs, and we'll create the county mosaics. And really, the only time on our process that we'll go outside of the cloud is when we'll push stuff to a remote desktop that has a bunch of drives connected to it, and that's where we'll organize the files. That it's still a process that we're driving, I guess during when we mail them one time, but we usually drive and hand off to the PSAP these drives. Maybe in the future, we'll see. That might change, but that's something we're thinking about.
If people get better broadband, maybe we can put these things out as downloads for people, but keep that flex and have that physical copy.
Yeah. So, anyhow, and so when you go to NC1 Map and you download our images, those images are actually residing in S3 buckets. That's on the cloud, so that's where it's accessing it. And we also have, the FTP, where if we need to we've done for a few localities where we created larger mosaics or a different product or different projections. It's a lot easier for us through the S3 bucket to be able to download, actually for you to download, for us to upload that, and we can meet you there. So, I'm sure, you guys, some of you have heard about if you're with the county reviewing data, doing the quality review, that's where we look at high value tiles for a review process for a certain percentage of the county. from 2012 through 2021, right, we had this product called Voice. It was created by Quantum. Quantum got acquired, I guess, by NV5. And in 2022, NV5 said we could no longer support Voice. And so that caused us a lot of heartburn. And and they said, we can stand you up on something that's called the data reviewer, basically. And it was part of their internal, NV5's internal quality review system. And their workflows didn't quite match our workflows. We gave their developers heartburn in return, but we've been working closely with them. So and we're going to use them again. We'll see. And I was looking around going, but we're going to use them again. We've been working closely to make improvements so that their workflow is more what we need, and so we can do this review process using this application. There's the things that we like about it. Our stakeholders, they can actually divvy up tiles easier within their own team as opposed to kind of a set tiles that we would set. On the back end, we make improvements so that that doesn't need to be hard coded in there. So in some ways, it's a more flexible tool. There's a more kind of onus on us to get it up and running at some level, but yeah, we'll see. This is some of the things you might find in doing a quality review. That's Vice President Harris plane in the frame, but you're not supposed to be there. Anyhow. So CIR. So since 2020, the fourth band has been part of the delivery for the images. That was basically a representation of true color with CIR overlaid over top of it. So most of you here know what CIR is. It was developed in World War II. It was, that time frame. It was used to find enemy positions that were camouflaged in vegetation. But the modern uses are in DVI sort of applications, crop health, things of that nature, and maybe extracting buildings. Is another way to find human structures. So anyhow, that's something that we've been offering since 2020. So we've got 3/4 of the state is done, and when this project has been delivered, we'll have the entire state in CIR. So I think we like to feel like that's a pretty cool accomplishment, and we hope to keep delivering. Yeah,
We're continuing that.
yeah.
2024 will
Yeah.
Yeah.
So object detection. This is something we've kind of been playing with on a limited basis in-house, doing a building extraction using artificial intelligence and deep learning to extract buildings. And we're excited about possibly doing some other projects in the future, be it impervious surfaces or maybe more building footprints for other projects like broadband.
So the original building footprint from emergency management, we're really working closely with them to try to develop a project plan. The GICC formulated a business plan for building footprints to outline the different options on how to do this and accomplish this, to use object detection to pull these features out and update the emergency management statewide data set. So we have a meeting actually next week with them to hopefully nail out some possibilities and outline how we may be able to leverage our imagery since it's a consistent product. If we had a consistent LiDAR source, then that could also be rolled into this update. But if we can, leverage the imagery, it is a consistent source. We want to be able to have those options, whether it's contracting out with our imagery to have a vendor pull the images and do the object detection, or we can possibly do it at Amazon. It's just not cheap. The server that we have to run on it is a really high GPU kind of machine, but it takes a lot of that.
Did you say 50,000 a year?
Yeah, about $40,000 to $50,000 a year if you're running it full time. So it's not a cheap solution. So we want to kind of cover our bases and find a funding source that's consistent.
So this is our presence online. That's our, if you haven't been there, that's the URL. You can find our project status on there. You saw a map earlier. That's actually, it's in there. This is where you can find our products in this download page. And there's, at the bottom is our REST services, another way to connect and bring it in. So that's about it. But We're going to try Minty.
Yeah, we're gonna try something. We want.
So we have
feedback.
questions for you. Yeah, we want some
Going into a new
feedback.
phase in the program, we want to make sure we're serving everybody's needs. If there's something we're not doing, we want to hear from you. So we're going to kind of force you to talk to us now. And we have a little bit of a question here. If you have your phones out, if you want to help us out and contribute to some feedback, I think we have some time. We're doing well. Yeah. So we have a few questions here, and give everybody a minute here. But if there's anything we're not doing, we always want to try to improve the program. We want to do better. You know, I feel like we have one of the best imagery programs in the country, but we want to stay that way. We want to stay at the top. So we want to hear from you if there's something that we can improve upon. So the first question I have, if I can. There we go. So what imagery products do you use the most from the program? So we offer, you know, when we deliver to the PSAPs every fall, we offer, you know, there's the original TIFF resolution, the full resolution TIFF tiles. We have SID tiles that are compressed 20:1. We have a county mosaic. There's a lot of different products we're developing, and then the image services. And so if there's things that are being used the most, if you like the most, if there's something you're tending to, we just wanted to hear a little bit of feedback on what are people using, because we deliver these hard drives and we put it up on NC1 map, and then we kind of are hands off. So the image services, that's kind of what I expected. A lot of people love those image services. Brett Spivey loves to see that because he has a big pain point when those are being developed every fall. So Brett, your hard work is appreciated. And then the county-wide mosaics, that is an easy product to drop in, and you know, unless you're zooming way down at the street level, you don't see the visual difference between that county mosaic and the SID tile. So that's good to know. And there's TIFF tiles. So we always thought a lot of people didn't use the TIFF tiles, so that's good to see that those are being used. And we're going to collect all this information, and if you're interested in the results, so we can publish that afterwards. Next question. Do you find it useful to participate in our voice imagery review? If you do. If you don't, we would like to hear that. If you do like to do it, I mean, we just want to know, is it worth your time? I know it's not fun to go in and review hundreds and hundreds of tiles of imagery. It gets a little tedious. It's a really good time to catch up on your podcast list, but outside of that, you know, it does get a little monotonous. Great. It's good to see. We appreciate everybody's effort in that. I mean, because we've only got so many eyes to look at, so many tiles, and the more people we can incorporate that, I think it just makes the products better in the end. And if you don't review and you want to, please stay in touch. We can get you an account. So what are your uses for the imagery? This is kind of an open-ended. You know, the value of the imagery after we deliver to the PSAPs. Like I said, we're always learning different uses that we've never heard of. So if you have anything that you use it for, just feel free to type in any answer there. You can use it to look at your house, look at your roof, you know, whatever you feel like you use it for, go ahead and let us know. Impervious surfaces, that's a great use for it, especially leaf off. You know, that's one of the object detection possibilities with the color infrared that we feel is being nosy. That is a good use for it. I do it all the time, actually, especially when we're reviewing the imagery. Tracing power lines, that's cool. Base map. Tax mapping, I mean, the tax mapping, I feel like our delivery schedule has expedited to where we're delivering the same year that we're collecting. We feel like that was very well received because a lot of those tax assessors want to see the imagery in that year, not the next year. You know, because when we started the program, we were delivering in January of the next year, and that was always kind of our feedback that we got. That's awesome. Stormwater billing, habitat delineation. And just so you know, answers here that will be going into future proposals. So, thank you. I will steal these answers. And so if you have uses of the color infrared, what do you feel like your uses of the color infrared if you have them? If you don't have them, you can say, I don't have any. But we're curious. You know, we really pushed. It was right after the 2019, the last conference that we had here in person. I was really kind of picking the brains of the vendors in those vendor halls, saying, what can we do with color infrared? What's the cost of this color infrared? I want color infrared. It's color infrared. That was kind of my harp on last conference. And after that, we went to the board in 2020 and proposed the color infrared. And I was able to show that the cost has really been reduced because of it's only just processing. It's already being collected. In the past, it was just dropped out. So after that, and after the feedback from this conference, that really contributed us to being able to propose that to the board and get it approved. Tree canopy, that's great. Shoreline mapping, don't use, that's fine. Farm use review, that's interesting. Green space research. Construction. IDK, whatever that is. I think I know. Impervious surfaces, cool. Awesome, thank you for all the feedback. We are gonna kind of dive deeper into these answers and learn more about all of your uses, and that's gonna really help us in the future. And with that, is there any questions? If anybody has any. Yes, sir. Brett, can you have an answer to that? Yeah, it's coming. I'm not familiar with that program. Good to know. Thank you. If it was mentioned in the Ortho Working Group, I totally agree. Yes. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Usually Nate or something like that they bring in, right? Yeah. So we every year after we delivered to the PSAPs and the counties, we also now we're actually pushing it up through AWS. We're able to say, hey, Esri, we have new imagery. Here's the metadata for that, and here's a bucket. Go download it. And so they just maybe 3 weeks ago downloaded the 2022 imagery, so it should be coming up probably any day now of having that 2022 project area. So it's usually in the January, February we try to get it uploaded. It just slipped into March a little bit, but yeah, every year we're trying to get that into the imagery-based map, but we have no guarantee that they'll keep it there. So if something else comes out that has a lower resolution, but it's a newer vintage, they'll typically go with the newer vintage over whatever quality that we have. So I can't guarantee that it'll stay there. So usually by the time we come back in 4 years, the imagery gets superseded by something else, either Nate or whatnot. How are we doing? But, okay, well, if anybody has any questions? Okay, go ahead. We really want to keep pushing the envelope. That was kind of the reasoning behind the voice program. A lot of time is taken in the summer to coordinate all of that piece. If we didn't have to do that, then we might be able to, but the quality might dip. So it's kind of a balancing act. I feel like we're really pushing the envelope with the large scale that we're doing and our vendors' capacity to turn this out quickly. to really expedite it any further, but we're always trying. So I'm really aiming for that mid-November timeframe. That's where my goal posts are. It's just hitting that with.
We've actually sped it up quite a bit. I mean, within the same year, November, I think it was the following year that we were delivering. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with going to AWS too. They help us.
Speed up a lot, and especially the imagery coming from the vendors, they can put it up into the cloud a lot quicker than sending the hard drives and all of that. I would like to continue to push it forward. It's just the holiday schedule there at the end of the year and John's kayaking schedule, and we got to balance all of these needs. Go ahead.
So we use your service
Right.
and all of the releases we're not actually analyzing, parking values or whatever.
Right.
We all have a cash app service that is more appropriate with those use cases.
It's coming back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming. It's on that list that Brett mentioned in the priority list to get reinstalled now that we're in the cloud and fully up there. That I know he has been working on recreating that cache service, especially because there has been a little slowdowns here and there, and we want to provide offload some of the user base that aren't using that kind of analytics to something else, especially if there's like apps and things that could really benefit from the cache service. So we're looking at that. Plus, the new data reviewer, they're not able to ingest the Esri image services, so they had to kind of create their own cache service from our Ortho latest to give us that historical perspective. So if we have our own cache, they can just bring that in because they can bring in WTF, and that cache will fill that role. So we're hopeful that that will be stood up soon. Right, Rick? I'm putting a lot on his list. So. Well, appreciate everybody coming out today. If there's any other questions, feel free to come up afterwards, and we'll be happy to talk about it. So appreciate everybody's time.